welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers by gamers. I'm Hex.
And I'm Barjo, and this week we're trying something a little different.
We're devoting the entire episode to one of the most challenging and enduring gaming genres, real-time strategy.
That's right, Zerg, booming, cheesing, rushing, raiding, fog of war.
Yeah, if you understood any of that, then this is the episode for you. If not, then stick around and hopefully you'll be an RTS convert by the end of it.
But first, can you guess the game for this week?
There are no set territories and no rules of engagement.
Sony has finally named their upcoming motion controller the PlayStation Move.
PlayStation Move.
While superficially similar to the Wii Remote, the Move works on a different principle, with the PlayStation Eye camera tracking the movement of an illuminated ball on the end of the wireless controller that contains a 3-axis gyroscope, 3-axis accelerometer, and terrestrial magnetic field sensor. It came to light during the announcement that only 2 Move controllers paired with nunchuck-style subcontrollers can function on a single PS3 console at any one time, leaving 4-player multiplayer motion games in limbo. The Game Developer Conference in San Francisco has come and gone, and no GDC would be complete without the GDC Developers' Choice Awards. The industry's finest minds voted on 09's biggest games, and above all, one title stood out: Uncharted 2. Naughty Dog's action-adventure opus cleaned up, winning the awards for Best Audio, Best Visual Arts, Best Technology, Best Writing, and the coveted Game of the Year. The 2010 Independent Games Festival has also announced its annual winners, with the co-op heist game Monaco What's Yours Is Mine winning the top award and netting its developer Pocket Watch a cool $20,000. Excellence in visual art and technical excellence went to Playdead's platformer Limbo. Notorious cartoonist K. Thor Jensen, co-founder of the website Portal of Evil, has created a flash game satirizing Heavy Rain. A stylized, simplified 2D game mimicking the earliest console games, Press X to Jason, is a game where the only thing you can do is press X to say Jason.
Jason.
This mimics the sequence early in Heavy Rain where the only thing you can do is press X to say Jason.
Jason!
Spoil it, Jason dies.
Brown pants.
Good game. I can't believe we're still sitting here talking about whether or not we should trust a mass murderer.
You have questions.
The final chapter of the Tiberium saga is at hand, with Command & Conquer 4 Tiberian Twilight, and attempts to give fans some closure on the story of Cain.
Yes, now for those who aren't familiar with the story, a meteoric collision has brought a mysterious alien-like substance known as Tiberium to Earth, resulting in a war between 2 globalized factions. The UN's Global Defense Initiative, who want to prevent the spread of Tiberium for safety reasons, and the mysterious Brotherhood of Nod, who see the Tiberium as the next stage in humanity's evolution.
10 years after the events of Cain's wrath, and the Tiberium has spread all across the Earth, making it nearly uninhabitable.
I have a proposition.
In an attempt to control the substance, the 2 factions join forces, but we all know that's not going to work out.
Now, CNC fans, prepare yourselves. There is no base building in this.
So you have the nodes.
Yes, in place of that, you're going to be required to capture and control goal nodes and work your way through a variety of GDI and nod scenarios. It might remind you of Dawn of War 2 a bit. In the multiplayer modes, you'll need to hold on to nodes for as long as possible to accumulate points. You also earn XP in multiplayer, which will unlock items, but only for the faction you're playing with, so you'll have to do it all again with the other faction.
I like that every mode, no matter what you're doing, will earn you XP, whether you're doing multiplayer or skirmish or playing online, but I can't help but feel that the game is encouraging me to grind a skirmish mode or go online in between campaign missions just to get through them. Of course, there is the remote possibility that I'm just playing really badly. I like that they've continued the trend in co-op here that they started with Red Alert 3, but, you know, they're saying this is the final chapter in the Tiberium saga, and I've been following Command & Conquer since the first game. and they're not letting me play it the way I want to play it. I'm actually genuinely sad about the change in gameplay here.
But don't you think that some change can be good? I mean, the previous games were all too much the same. Maybe they just wanted to go out with a bang, and we had some fun in our co-op sessions.
Yeah, but what if God of War 3 turned out to be a point-and-click detective puzzler? You know, it would still be polished, and it would probably be a bit funny, but it's not why I play God of War. And here there's all this, it's just so different. There's all these RPG elements and leveling and population caps, and it's just not Command and Conquer, and it's not why I play Command and Conquer. I'm gonna do my best to contain my fanboy rage, but no promises.
God, just to the end of the review. The strategy here is shifted from production and classic real-time strategy to squad-based tactics, collecting XP and picking classes that suit a battle situation, offensive, defensive, or support.
Offense is the best defense.
Offensive will see you charging into the fray with tough units. Defensive will better equip you to stand your ground, whereas the support is more mobile. You pump out units from a crawler unit that can only deploy when unpacked, but you can get a few units ready before you let them loose. Crawlers also have their own abilities which build over time and reset when a crawler is destroyed.
You'll be leapfrogging around the map and attack moving to new locations while keeping engineers to look after your squad, keep them healed, and pick up any husks you find along the way. I do enjoy a good husk hex.
Commander, the Nod avatar you just destroyed left behind a husk. Your engineer can capture it.
You can't just attack move your way everywhere though. You will need to stop and regroup. And quite often you'll need to switch crawlers and decommission one crawler and choose a different class, and you're not always told when the best time is to do that.
Yeah, there are some interesting scenarios there. I do like that when you decommission a unit or your crawler, how upset they get.
If it is necessary.
Oh, it's okay, little crawler. You did a good job.
There's been a much needed update to the user interface too. In previous games it was always that chunky sidebar, and now it seems to be a lot more space economical, but you still can't zoom out enough in this game.
Yeah, they still haven't worked out we're not on CRTs anymore, and the interface is still a bit too big when compared to other RTS games.
There's general graphical improvements too. The fog of war is excellent, and when your bigger units are destroyed, they'll sort of break down and crumble before they're eventually destroyed in a satisfying explosion, and your crawler unit will actually kind of stumble along and even sound quite distressed when it's in trouble.
One of the staples of Command & Conquer is full motion video, and you don't see enough FMV nowadays, and I loved it. It's just great having a story told in an RTS at all, even if it is terrible. Awesome, but terrible.
Let me show you the truth. Join me and leave the ignorance of GDI behind you.
Wait, Commander. Don't listen to this animal.
Multiplayer is really about holding onto those goal nodes to earn enough points and choosing the right classes to help support your teammates, but really you're going to have fun here if you love the CNC universe enough to learn about the units and their counters.
Yeah, it's kind of like scissors, paper, rock, squid, bunny rabbit, velociraptor. Some have really strange weaknesses and strengths. You really need to do your homework, and you need to do it good.
Well, it's not really Command & Conquer as we're used to seeing it. Even Kane's fancy moo seemed a bit out of place.
If you move quickly, Commander, you might be able to save some of your brethren, including your wife.
No, I got into it a lot more than you did, I think, and once the game goes live and we have a chance to sort of set our goons out onto the field, I think we'll have more fun with it. I'm giving it 8 out of 10 rubber chickens.
You could say that until the last few years, RTS was going through a bit of a stale patch, so it's nice to see them trying new things, but I couldn't get into it. I had a really average time here, and it's just because of my fanboy tears, I think. So I'm giving it 7 out of 10 rubber chickens. No, I'm fine. Dizzy.
Good game.
You can't have the real-time strategy genre without a whole bunch of strategies, and it's no good having a strategy at all if it isn't the best. We're here with the Uppsala Medieval Recreation Society to reenact 5 of the most strategic real-time strategies in real time. First up, number 5! The turtle is a strange and magnificent beast, virtually incapable of offense, but has one of the sturdiest defenses in the animal kingdom. Of course, in the world of RTS, a turtle isn't a creature, it's a strategy. Turtling is a tactic that involves taking an almost 100% defensive stance on the battlefield. While your enemy is recruiting soldiers and preparing their raiding parties, the turtling strategist totally avoids confrontation and instead focuses on building up their base and their defenses until they are nearly impenetrable. Turtling can be an effective technique if you want to prolong a battle or delay an enemy's victory until you have enough resources to mount a successful counterattack, or until they just get bored, pack up and go home. Cheese is delicious, and so is victory, so it makes total sense to combine them both into a block of devious strategy. Cheesing, as it's known to pro RTS players, is a highly unconventional and devious strategy used by underhanded players looking to score an easy win at the expense of their dignity. It's usually used in StarCraft, and there are several versions of it, but the funniest is sending a unit to construct a pylon, which is a structure that allows you to build other structures around it, and then setting up a bunch of teleporters just outside their base. An even cheesier version of the strategy is just to go and build a bunch of turrets right outside their base, which will quickly demolish them in seconds. Some say the technique derives its name from the Korean word for cheetah, which apparently sounds a lot like cheese. But wherever it got its name from, cheesing is a lot like a strong fromage. It should only be used sparingly. Next is a strategy that's a part of any good offense, and it can be combined with any other strat we've already mentioned. It's number 3 on our list, and it's called raiding. A raid is a small sortie designed to irritate your enemies, and basically just involves sending out small teams of troops to knock out any straggling squads or undefended posts. The idea behind raiding is that it distracts your enemy from getting too involved in building up their economy, because they're spending all their time defending themselves from your niggling attacks. This makes the attack later in the game much more devastating. In the RTS world, greed can be good, and the best strategy for your economy is booming. Successful booming is all about building newer, stronger, and more expensive units, such as this really powerful super unit here. Producing this super unit is all about climbing the tech tree and then offering them enough cash to fight for you. Is this enough? Booming leaves your base relatively defenseless at the start of the game, but as you build up your economy and technology levels, you'll be able to buy bigger and better defensive and offensive units and stand a better chance of totally steamrolling your opponents when the time comes. In its simplest form, the rush is the strategy of building as many of your cheapest, nastiest units as fast as possible and then rushing them over to your opponent's base. I'll take 100 if you please. Once you've built up your forces, it's time to unleash the fury. It's a risky strategy because if your rush doesn't work, you'll have wasted all your time and resources on breeding your army of cheap soldiers, which will leave your own base vulnerable. But if executed correctly, a rush can leave your rival's base in ruins and see you take the win. It's quick, it's easy, it's effective, and can pretty much be used in any RTS game ever made. And that's why the rush is our #1 real-time strategy strat. So, all you real-time strategy strategists, next time you want to rush a base, cheese a noob, or boom your economy, just remember the Good Game Top 5 real-time strategy strats, and you should be able to keep an even head in the heat of battle. Now, if you'll excuse me.
Barjo, how would you like to review a real-time strategy game?
I could get into that, Hex, but for the next 6 minutes, I'm only interested in robots. Supreme Commander was the spiritual successor to Total Annihilation, and a very fine and complex RTS it was, with a focus on repeat production of units, large-scale battles, and manipulating the tech tree.
Subcom 2 features some much welcome tweaks to the UI, some changes to the gameplay, and a new campaign which attempts to add a more personal and human aspect to the storyline.
Honey, I'm about to do something very, very stupid.
I have faith in you.
If I fail, they'll come after you.
Then don't fail. Be safe, my love.
They're so lame. Hex, I don't know what it is about RTS that just breeds bad storylines, but here all the characters are so self-righteous and somber.
Then it's over.
Oh, and one of them has the black lung.
Stop that.
Unless you know your subcom history, you're really not going to have any idea what's going on. And let's face it, even if you do know your subcom history, you're probably not going to care.
Yeah, all you need to know is there's a bunch of robots, slightly different robots, and they all hate each other. Go.
Oh, it's huge. I may need more guns.
The single-player campaign has some reasonable length to it, but on the whole, it's generally pretty dull.
Fascinating. The engineers are capturing your army.
The only interesting bit is when you encounter some units that try to assimilate you, which force you to think differently about how you move up the map, and just generally it's better when it's harder. Remember to save often, though. There's nothing worse than being in a 45-minute battle only to have your ACU caught off guard and explode right near the end. The single-player campaign just felt like an overly long tutorial, and not a good one.
Yeah, but at least it's better than the first one. That was quite daunting. The interface is almost flawless now. You can see even more on the screen, and the shift key is still your friend. You'll use it to prioritize targets, queue build orders, repair units, and set patrol points. As your economy grows and you take over more resources, you'll need to finally adjust your build queues to output more diverse units and just to keep the units going. This game's all about setting up a long-term plan and watching it play out.
If you overspend your budget, though, and you will do this often, factories will just go on pause and stop your production flow. Workers will just stop working and chill out if they run out of cash. Like your robots, your economy is a well-oiled machine that you need to keep an eye on. Hooking up a second monitor for a permanent tactical map is advantageous.
Grouping's really clever here too. You select a whole bunch of units and it will intelligently ignore your ACU and all the engineers which are busy building things and repairing units. And also the AI here for the units is just really smart. The AI will just attack whatever it can. You don't have to worry about prioritizing too much, which is important when there's so many units on the screen at once.
There is the odd time when your units don't respond to your move orders, and while the pathfinding in this game is generally pretty good with all the units on screen at once, it's not infallible, and there's the odd occasion when one of your units will be stuck in an endless loop.
Your battle outcome will often depend on the tech tree choices you make, and there's so much depth in this. You could go for an air assault, or beef up your ACU and go for a skirmish attack, or go for structural upgrades early on. It all depends on who you're facing, and it means online there's endless possibilities. So if you like experimenting with RTS strategies, then this is definitely the RTS for you. Online battles felt a little bit shorter this time around, and I think it's because as you plot your way up the tech tree now, all your units on the field instantly tech up, which means they just hold out longer.
Early on, the units are all quite similar between factions, but as you fill out the tech tree, you'll start to have access to more experimental units and structures, and that's where you'll see the differences.
Getting the hang of this RTS is a big time investment and a lot of hours being humiliated online, but this is built for online. There's more units there and it's just more fun. I'm giving it 7.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
I do find a certain joy in watching giant robots trudge towards each other with giant lasers ready to do some demolishing. There are some decent skirmish AI options if you want to practice, and it's worth doing those because a single player won't teach you anything except robot fighting 101. I'm going to give this one a 7.
In fact, I can't think of anything I'd rather do over the next 67 hours.
Good game.
A show about RTS games would not be complete without at least a mention of one of the all-time greats of the genre.
So, with the beta for StarCraft 2 having a limited release only a few weeks ago, we visited Australian StarCraft legend Legionnaire to hear his thoughts on the long-awaited sequel to the 1998 military sci-fi classic.
Do they come to save or to destroy?
StarCraft's a real-time strategy game. Go, go, go. You mine resources, you use that to build an army. It's a lot like chess. You have to battle it out against your opponent, so that challenge is a lot of fun. I have played StarCraft 2. I've been playing it for about a week now. It's been out for maybe 2. It looks fantastic. The units are a little different. The gameplay has definitely changed a bit, but you can definitely tell it's a new and improved game. First and foremost is the graphics and the physics engine. It went from a 2D game where you could only move in 8 directions on the map to a 3D game you could move perfect 360 degrees. The gameplay, especially early on in the matches, is a lot more intensive for mining in comparison to the other one. In StarCraft 1, the units could overlap, so that could become very powerful to attack. In StarCraft 2, they've removed that, so they can clump together, but they won't stack on top of each other. Another big change is the matchmaking system. It's a lot more like Warcraft 3, where it automatically matches you up with people of similar skill levels, while the original StarCraft, you just had to hope for the best and try and find someone that you could play against. The beta is only very early. Some of the units aren't even in the game at this point. A lot of the thing Blizzard is trying to do is just to even up the matches, find out any flaws in the actual gameplay. Some of the changes they've made just before the release has caused one of the matchups to be very boring to actually play, because you have to do a specific build, or if you don't do it, you lose. And no one really wants that. You want a challenge, you want to be able to see who comes out on top. There's a few other flaws, such as movements, a lot different. Whether you can call them flaws or features compared to other games, it's up to interpretation. In StarCraft 1, you could only hotkey a single building under a single hotkey, while now I can group multiples, so it helps to remove a lot of the micro that occurs. So you don't have to be as fast as what the top pro gamers used to be as good. Now you can be a lot slower and still compete at the same level, which will definitely be a big advantage for a lot of the up-and-comer gamers. The balance between the 3 races is pretty even at this point in time. Of course, there's going to be flaws with how the balance works, because it is so early in the beta. Some units are a little too powerful in some aspects. There aren't enough counters for that sort of thing. But at this point, considering how early the game is, it's pretty decent.
I'm in a heap of trouble.
I think the fans of StarCraft 1 might find it a little hard to go over to StarCraft 2. The gameplay is changed, and because everyone's so used to what StarCraft 1 is, because it's been around for 13 years now, it might take a bit to try and convince them to come over and watch StarCraft 2.
Man, still stuck in this chicken shit outfit.
A lot of the pro gamers now have a huge following, and so they probably won't leave StarCraft 1 at this point in time. There's no real incentive for them to do that. But for other players who haven't quite made it to the very top level of StarCraft 1, all of them are going to move over to StarCraft 2, because that's where all the tournaments will be, that's where all the interest is, and that's where they can make a name for themselves.
Good game.
They fear me, like a force of nature, a dealer in thunder and death. I say, I am Napoleon. I am Emperor.
Last year's Empire Total War brought the series kicking and screaming into colonial times, ditching arrows and swords for gunpowder and bayonets.
And just a year later, the Creative Assembly have come up with Napoleon Total War, taking that same Empire formula but focusing it on the life of one of the greatest and shortest military leaders to have ever lived.
This time around, there's no grand campaign. Instead, there are 5 smaller ones spanning the life of Napoleon, from his early triumphs in Italy all the way through to his eventual defeat in Waterloo. However, this time, you're in control of the little Frenchman, so defeat is anything but assured.
There's also a few campaigns giving you the chance to fight against Napoleon, forcing you down a more historically accurate path. And this forces you to sort of replicate history as opposed to forging your own, and this kind of irked me, Badge, because it means that you have less control over your overall strategy, but there's something to be said for having a tighter historical focus.
Yeah, it's nice to play a game that teaches you something once in a while. It's edutainment. Am I learning? Am I gaming? Am I learning? Am I gaming? Now I'm learning. I'm glearning.
Yeah, what matters though is how much fun it is, and thanks to some great new effects in the battlefield, it's glorious fun planning out your grand military strategy, watching your little guys line up to take turns at shooting each other.
Epic clouds of smoke will form and blow across the battlefield, and the cannonballs hit with a more satisfying punch now. There's nothing quite like watching cannonballs fly across the battlefield, rip through your enemy's lines, and send their men flying in all directions.
Didn't it bug you though that most of them seem to just pick themselves back up and then get back into the fight after being nailed with a cannonball? I'm pretty sure they'd be dead.
You know, I had the most fun when I was on the back foot. It's all well and good to steamroll across the continent with an army that could reach the moon if you stack them all on top of each other, like some sort of man ladder to the moon. But when you're down to those few hundred units fighting off thousands, and you get down to the last couple of guys and you manage to pull it off somehow, it's just a victory that even Napoleon himself would want to high-five you at, although it would probably have to be a low five.
Because he's so short.
Because he's so short.
Got it. Didn't you find the enemy AI a bit stupid at times, though? I mean, often they'd send their general unit rushing forward by itself on a suicide mission. I mean, sure, they were generally better at keeping their lines together, but mostly they just walk forward into my lines and get decimated.
There is a new feature which could eliminate these AI issues, and that's that an opponent, a real-life player, can challenge you during your campaign and take the opposite side.
But during our time with it, we never got a single one, so I'm not sure if it's just not that popular a feature or if we were just unlucky. It's a nice idea, though.
Naval combat is back, although it felt kind of unnecessary. The only campaigns which really require naval supremacy are the British ones, and in that, it takes 5 turns to build a basic naval unit, and in that time you could have churned out a few thousand men. Still, the RTS side of things is only one half of the Total War formula. What truly sets it apart from other RTS is the excellent turn-based gameplay, which is fundamental to your success on the battlefield.
Yeah, and it feels like this is the area that got the most attention. Diplomacy is now much more of a factor to gameplay, and there's also a new function which allows you to liberate cities, which doesn't give you control of the city, but it actually turns a whole country into one of your protectorates.
I'm in two minds about it though, Hex, because on one side it's as good as any other Total War game, but on the other it kind of feels like an expansion to Empire.
Yeah, to me it's a refinement of the Empire experience with a heavy dose of history thrown in. Final thoughts?
It's a shame you have to unlock all the historical battles by playing through the campaign. I think some people want to just jump into that straight away, but it's a solid effort. I'm giving it 8 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to give it 8 as well.
Good game! So gamers, did you guess the game for this week?
It's one of the classic strategy games of all time, Dune 2 Battle for Arrakis from Westwood Studios, released in 1992. Westwood would go on to further define Dune 2's RTS mechanics in their Command & Conquer series.
So that brings us to the end of this RTS-themed episode. Did you like it? Would you like to see more of it, maybe, with other genres? Let us know what you think, or we'll just keep doing what we want.
Next week, we grapple through the skies with Just Cause 2.
Plus, it's sandy swords in the desert with Red Steel 2.
And the latest Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver.
Oh. Don't forget there's Good Game Spawn Point over on ABC 3 at the weekend. Until next time, gamers, Barjo out.
Hex out.
Sorry, I spit on you. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Brown pants.